will, pass all your exams with flying colors. Okay. Now, we here at Oracle offer you live classes, recorded sessions, notes, as well as MCQs. Okay. These live classes are extremely beneficial, because you have the educators coming online and they teach everything online. You can get your doubts clarified then and there. And recorded sessions have very crisp and concise videos, as much as information that you require for your examination. And you also have notes which are full of diagrams and flowcharts and very crisp and concise, which will help you immensely. And MCQs are there for your upcoming next examination. We offer three different subscription models: basic, standard, and premium mentorship model. And in the basic, you have pre-recorded live classes and quick revision modules. In the standard, you have pre-recorded live doubt clarification, as well as quick revision examination modules. Whereas the premium mentorship, you get all in all, right? You even have the one-on-one personalized guidance where you will have a mentor who will be like a buddy to you. They'll resolve every issue, whether academical or not. And this will really, really help you in your, in every way possible, right? And you can book just the personalized sessions with us, and you will have a mentor, and they'll be like, as I said, like your friend. You can clarify anything and everything with them. Can use my coupon code Dr. Sushma 20 for additional discounts on all our plans. And this is the internal marathon that we are running. And you'll have the rapid revision of all important questions and quick revision of the volatile facts, basically, and MCQs. And also, we are sure that you get top-notch grades in your examination. Okay. With that, these are the topics that I will be covering in today's class. And mind you guys, all of these topics, whatever the topic that I'm teaching you, is very, very, very important. Okay. There is no way you're going to the exam without studying these topics. All right. Yes. First of all, the first question that we are doing, or the first topic that we are doing, is the indirect pathway and the direct pathway of basal ganglia. I don't know why a lot of you have issue with this topic, because you don't understand the basic concept of how and why these pathways are even happening in the first place. All right. So first of all, guys, let's just have a basic understanding of what basal ganglia is. All right. After that, I'll tell you how to write answer in your examination. Basal ganglia is nothing but a collection of different nucleus that will help in motor coordination and movement. Correct. Different nucleus we have caudate, we have putamen, globus pallidus externa, globus pallidus interna, and caudate and putamen together are called as striatum. Then you have substantia nigra pars compacta, and you also have a subthalamic nucleus, and substantia nigra pars reticulata, so on and so forth. So all of these nuclei together, they work and they make sure that we are having coordinated movements. We are not having any uncoordinated or unnecessary, unwanted movements. Okay. Yeah. So to make sure that we have the movements which are coordinated and which are happening in a very coordinated way, we have two different pathways. We have direct pathway and we have indirect pathway. So this is actually a physiology topic, but I think it is relevant if we do this in anatomy, with having some ideas about the nucleus and everything. The basic concept here, guys, is in the direct pathway, the globus pallidus interna inhibits the thalamus. Okay, so that is the basic concept. The basic concept is the globus pallidus interna inhibits the thalamus, and the thalamus inhibits the cerebral cortex. No movement will happen. Okay, this is what normally happens, irrespective of whether it is a direct pathway or an indirect pathway. So normally globus pallidus interna inhibits the thalamus, and thalamus, when it is inhibited, inhibits the cerebral cortex, and movement will not happen. The concept is, in direct pathway, it facilitates the movement. Okay, direct pathway facilitates the movement. So if direct pathway facilitates the movement, then something should inhibit the globus pallidus interna so that the inhibitory influence of the globus pallidus interna on the thalamus is gone, so that thalamus is not inhibited and it sends signal to the cerebral cortex to initiate the movement. Understanding this basic concept, so normally what happens, irrespective of whether it is whether it is a direct or an indirect pathway, normally globus pallidus interna inhibits the thalamus inhibits the cerebral cortex. This is a normal thing that happens. In case of direct pathway, by definition, direct facilitates the movement. Okay, direct facilitates the movement. Now, if a cerebral cortex is wanting to initiate a movement. For example, you're standing in the traffic. I need to cross the road, right? I need to cross the road. Now, what my brain does is it looks at so many parameters. It looks at the speed with which the vehicle is approaching. It calculates the distance. Okay, I have to travel 10 meters, 20 meters, and I have this much of time. The vehicle is approaching with this much of time, this much of speed, and it calculates everything, and it finally gives an output. And the output, either it inhibits the movement or it facilitates the movement. Correct? If it inhibits the movement, you will not cross the road, you will just stand there. If it facilitates the movement, you will initiate the movement and you will cross the road. Okay. Now let's assume that the cerebral cortex has analyzed all of these things and now it has given an input, given an output that yes, you have to initiate the movement. Now, how does this basal ganglia take that input and initiate this movement is what is a direct pathway. All right. Now, what happens is when the cerebral cortex decides that, yes, I need to have this movement made, then it tells the striatum. So, what is striatum? Striatum is caudate and putamen. Correct? Caudate and putamen together is called as striatum. Now, what it does is the cerebral cortex tells the striatum that I need this movement. What striatum does is, striatum directly inhibits the globus pallidus interna. So, globus pallidus interna loses its inhibitory action on the thalamus. So, the movement is initiated. Very simple. Normally, what happens? Globus pallidus interna inhibits the thalamus, no movement occurs. But when I have to have some movement, when the cortex decides that I want some movement, cerebral cortex excites the striatum. Striatum inhibits the globus pallidus interna. Globus pallidus interna, the inhibitory influence of the globus pallidus interna on the thalamus is gone. So, movement is initiated. This is the direct pathway. That's it. Indirect pathway, okay, in direct pathway, striatum directly inhibits the globus pallidus interna and this is gone. This normally what globus pallidus interna, how it inhibits the thalamus, this inhibitory influence is gone and the movement happens. That's it. Is it so difficult? I really hope that's from now, it's not difficult for you. Okay. Next, what happens in case of an indirect pathway? I told you that direct facilitates the movement, indirect inhibits the movement. Direct facilitates, indirect inhibits. That means somebody should come and stimulate the globus pallidus interna so that it inhibits the thalamus and thalamus inhibits the movement. Okay, suppose if there's a vehicle approaching you really fast and you will not cross the road, right? You will inhibit that movement. The cerebral cortex, it tells the basal ganglia that no, you have to inhibit this movement. How does the basal ganglia take this task and it inhibit the movement? That is the indirect pathway. Now the cerebral cortex is here. This cerebral cortex tells the striatum that I do not need the movement. I don't need the movement. Now the same striatum, it inhibits the globus pallidus externa. This globus pallidus externa in turn inhibits the subthalamic nucleus. This subthalamic nucleus stimulates the globus pallidus interna. So here the basic concept that you have to understand is normally subthalamic nucleus, okay, subthalamic nucleus inhibits the globus pallidus interna. This is normal. Okay, here how the globus pallidus interna was inhibiting thalamus. Normally, subthalamic nucleus inhibits the globus pallidus interna. Okay, and then the inhibitory influence of the thalamus is gone, so movement happens. But in case of indirect pathway, the globus pallidus externa comes and it inhibits the subthalamic nucleus, so that its inhibitory influence on the GPI is gone. Now the GPI is stimulated, therefore it has an inhibitory influence on the thalamus, and it inhibits the movement. So this is like basically simply, God has created all of these checkpoints to uh, avoid any sort of unnecessary movement. If you see any lesion of the subthalamic nucleus, there is something called as hemibalismus, where there is dancing kind of movement that happens. If there is any lesion in the substantia nigra, there is Parkinsonism, where there'll be tremors, spin rolling tremors, and all of this will be present. So, to prevent all of these unnecessary movements, God has created these two beautiful direct and indirect pathways where you have all of these checkpoints. So, to summarize, to write in your exam, if a direct pathway is asked, okay, if the direct pathway is asked, look at this, guys. This side is the direct pathway. If the direct pathway is asked, all you got to write is very simple. Direct first point is it allows the movement, or it stimulates the movement, voluntary movement. Okay, then you have to just write this pathway. How does it happen? So first of all, the substantia nigra stimulates the striatum. Striatum, secretes GABA, and that inhibits the GPI. So the inhibitory influence on the thalamus is gone, and the movement is initiated. You have to just write this flowchart that I have written over here. Just write this flowchart. That should be enough. For the indirect pathway, same. Indirect inhibits the movement, and write this flowchart. That's all you're supposed to write when it comes to direct and indirect pathway. Quite easy to understand. You should, to be able to answer this question, you should have a good idea about the nucleus of basal ganglia. Okay, all the nuclei that is present here. Nucleus of BG is very, very important. Then the whether it secretes GABA, whether it secretes dopamine. So you have to have an idea about this as well. And then approach this direct and indirect pathway, then it will become easy for you. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult if you don't even know the names of the nucleus. Okay? Yes. So that is our one topic done. Now we are going to the second topic, which is the fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle. Now, I'll just give you a brief introduction about the ventricles, then we'll do of the rhomboid fossa. Now, what are this ventricle system, guys? Try to understand. We have lateral ventricles, we have third ventricle, and we have fourth ventricle. These is what are these ventricles? These are the spaces where the CSF circulation and production takes place. Okay, CSF production takes place in the lateral ventricles, in the choroid plexus. So choroid plexus secrete the CSF. From the lateral ventricles, all of the CSF comes to the third ventricle via the foramen of Monro. From third, it comes to the fourth ventricle via aqueduct of Sylvis. From fourth ventricle, it gets absorbed into the subarachnoid space via foramen of Lushka and foramen of Megendie. From arachnoid space, it goes into the arachnoid granulations and it gets absorbed into the systemic circulation. So this is a basic concept of ventricles. Now, what exactly are we talking about is the fourth ventricle. Okay, we are now talking about the fourth ventricle, which is also called as the rhomboid fossa. The floor of the fourth ventricle is called as rhomboid fossa. If this question comes in your examination, what are you supposed to write? Okay, first of all, if this question comes, fourth ventricle, you have to write what are ventricles, the definition of ventricles. Okay, if it is just a 3-marker questions, then this diagram and explanation is fine. 5-marker question, you have to write the boundaries. 10-marker, if it comes, you have to include this as well. Okay, you have to include the entire concept of ventricles as well. First, you write the definition of ventricles. Second, where is fourth ventricle situated? Fourth ventricle is situated in the dorsal aspect of the brain stem. It is actually present in the dorsal aspect of the brain stem, site and shape. floor of the ventricle is rhomboid. It is rhomboid in shape. It is also called as rhomboid fossa. This you have to write. Then come to the boundaries. Then come to the boundaries. Very, very simple. Okay. Now look at this. If this is the rhomboid fossa, what are the different boundaries that you are seeing? Here you are seeing the superior cerebellar peduncle. Okay. And this side, you are seeing that this is the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Are we seeing middle cerebellar peduncle, guys? No. Middle cerebellar peduncle is not a boundary of the fourth ventricle. Middle cerebellar peduncle is not a boundary of the fourth ventricle. So what do you write for boundaries? You write the superior cerebellar peduncle, inferior cerebellar peduncle, and also you are seeing the cuneate as well as the gracile tubercles. Remember, nucleus gracilis, nucleus cuneatus, all of these are parts of the dorsal column pathway, right? Remembering anything from physiology, dorsal column pathway, they come and they synapse in this midbrain. They relay the information in the nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus, and these are the tubercles, right? Cuneate tubercle and gracile tubercle. So what are the boundaries? Very simple. SCP. Here is the SCP, superior cerebellar peduncle, inferior cerebellar peduncle, and also you have cuneate and gracile tubercle. Cuneate tubercle, gracile tubercle. That's it. Anything difficult here? Not at all. Then come to the contents. So this is where the questions are asked, right? What are the contents of the floor of the fourth ventricle? This is where questions come because it's that important. You have so many important cranial nerve nuclei are present over here. All right. Now, what are the different cranial nerve nucleus that we see? First and the foremost, you see these two rounded big elevations over here. They are called as facial colliculus. What is this facial colliculus, guys? If you remember, in all my classes, I keep telling you the seventh nerve nucleus, right? From there, the facial nerve comes and it goes around the sixth cranial nerve nucleus, which is the abducent nucleus. So the seven, even though the name is the facial colliculus, the nucleus that is present behind the facial colliculus is the sixth nerve nucleus. If you look at the rhomboid fossa, what do you have is this facial colliculus, which is nothing but the abducent nerve nucleus, sixth cranial nerve nucleus. Then between them, we have something called as median sulcus. After that, we have this sulcus limitans. What is sulcus limitans, guys? Embryologically, as the baby is developing, how the cranial nerve nuclei, the sulcus limitans is the one that separates the basal plate and the alar plate, right? Basal plate and alar plate, and they go. That's how the cranial nerve nuclei gets arranged, right? Basal plate is mostly motor, alar plate is mainly sensory goes more lateral, motor comes more medial. So this is how the embryologically, this is how the development takes place. So this boundary that we have over here is the sulcus limitans. Okay. Now, after sulcus limitans, I see some sort of a triangular area over here, and this is the vestibular area. I'll show one more diagram where we can appreciate all of this. Okay, vestibular area where we have the eighth cranial nerve nucleus. So we have sorted six, we've sorted with eight. Then you can see that we have something called as stria medullaris over here. Beneath the stria medullaris, what we have over here is the hypoglossal triangle. Hypoglossal triangle, which is the 12th nerve triangle. Then below that, we have the vagal triangle. Below that, we have the vagal triangle. So these 6, 8, 12, 10 are the very important cranial nerve nuclei that are present on the floor of the fourth ventricle. Very important, guys. You cannot get this wrong. And this is almost, it is asked in every internal examination, every viva. What are the different cranial nerve nuclei that are present? Start with the facial colliculus. Facial colliculus, as you can see, this is a beautiful diagram. Suppose if they ask the boundaries, superior cerebellar peduncle, here you have the inferior cerebellar peduncle, then you have the gracile tubercle and cuneatus tubercle. These two you have, right? Next, what does not form the boundary? MCP, middle cerebellar peduncle, does not form the boundary. That's it. Done with boundaries. Come to the contents. Right, when you're writing the diagram, after you write this, make a midline. Okay. After the midline, you make these two colliculus and make this sulcus limitans. And then here you have the stria medullaris. Make the median sulcus and the stria medullaris, and then the sulcus limitans. And what are these two? These two are the facial colliculus, which have the 6 abducent, and the one that is next to the sulcus limitans here will be the vestibular area. Beneath the stria medullaris, you have the hypoglossal as well as vagal areas. That is it. That's all about the floor of the fourth ventricle. And this diagram is very important. You have to write. Just a small line diagram should be sufficient. One more diagram to show you. This is the median sulcus, and as you can see, this is the stria medullaris, and this is the facial colliculus. Okay, and here you have the sulcus limitans. This will be the vestibular area, and then as you can see over here, beneath, just behind the stria medullaris, what we have is the hypoglossal triangle, and here you have the vagal triangle. That's about it. And this is cuneate and gracilis. These are the tubercles. That's it. That's all you are supposed to write. And you can see a nerve that is going over here. What is this nerve that goes dorsally? This is the trochlear nerve. And also you can see a part of the inferior colliculus over here. And this is the superior cerebellar peduncle, which is cut. And this is the this is the inferior cerebellar peduncle, and this is the middle cerebellar peduncle, which does not form the boundary. So superior and inferior, they form the boundary of the rhomboid fossa. Okay. Whatever I have written, whatever I have mentioned over here is very important, and that's it. So just write a simple diagram like this. Don't make any very in your exam. What you tend to do is you tend to make all of this hi-fi diagrams with so many colorings and all of that. Don't do any of this. Keep it simple. Keep it very easy. That's it. My diagram skills are very bad, but do not follow me. If you write something like this, good enough with good labelings. Okay. Next. Third topic we are doing is the IPF, interpeduncular fossa. Okay. Now, interpeduncular fossa, what are we supposed to understand by this? Interpeduncular fossa, where exactly is it situated? Interpeduncular fossa is situated in the ventral aspect of the brain stem, in the tectum area, right? It is present in the ventral aspect of the brain stem. Okay, then what is the importance, or why are we studying interpeduncular fossa? Is because it is situated between the two peduncles. What peduncles are those? Right now, when I was discussing fourth ventricle, I was talking about cerebellar peduncles, but no, interpeduncular fossa is actually present between the cerebral peduncles, which are called as crus cerebri, where you have all of the motor tracts that converge from cerebrum to the brainstem, as you can see here. This part is the crus cerebri, guys. This is where you have all the motor tracts that come from the cerebrum to the brainstem via the crus cerebri, and crus cerebri are the cerebral peduncles, not cerebellar peduncles. When you hear the word interpeduncular fossa, don't go and write cerebellar peduncle. IPF is between the two cerebral peduncles. Understanding? Simple. Now, first of all, what are we supposed to write if IPF comes? Its situation. Then, definition. What is it? Is a area that is situated between the two crus cerebri, cerebral peduncle in the anterior aspect of the brainstem. Done. Next, come to the boundaries. Boundaries. Yes. Now, look at this, guys. If this is the interpeduncular fossa, you can clearly see anteriorly it is bounded by optic chiasma. See here, this entire space is the interpeduncular fossa. It is bounded anteriorly by optic chiasma. From the optic chiasma, what arises? An optic tract. Correct. Now, posteriorly, it is bounded by pons. Anteriorly, it is bounded by optic chiasma, and laterally, obviously, it has to be bound by the optic tract. Is it or is it not? Anything difficult over here? Of course not. From anteriorly, if it is bound by the optic chiasma, from see, two optic nerves, they cross over each other, and from the optic chiasma, optic tracts arise. These optic tracts go on to become the optic radiations, and they enter into the they enter into the visual cortex in the occipital lobe. So obviously, the continuation of the pathway after the optic chiasma, you have the optic tracts that come over here, and they form the lateral boundary of the IPF. Anteriorly, you have the optic chiasma. Posterolaterally, you have the OTs, and posteriorly, you have the pons. That's it. Simple. Boundaries are done. Then come to the contents. If optic chiasma is there, guys, what are the other structures you can imagine over there? Can you imagine? Optic chiasma is there. So obviously, you should have mammillary bodies, right? If optic chiasma is there, there is a pituitary stalk, and there are mammillary bodies. Remember, this picture should come to your mind whenever somebody tells you about optic tract. This picture should come to your mind. Okay, so obviously, because we are talking about in the region where optic chiasma is present, you have the infundibulum and the tuber cinerarium. Then we have a very important structure which is present over here, which is the posterior perforating substance. So what is this posterior perforating substance, guys? Now understand, where is the circle of Willis present? Circle of Willis present is present, it is present in the subarachnoid space. But we have many deeper structures, isn't it? We have structures in the inferior aspect of the brain like this. Infundibulum, tuber cinerarium, if you hold the brain like this, they're all present in the base. So how are the blood vessels going to go to these structures which are present deep inside? It cannot pierce any important structure and go, right? Then that will result in neurological deficits. That is why God has created these substances called as perforating substances, through which the arteries actually perforate and they go and supply the deeper structures. In the IPF, we have one such structure which is called as the posterior perforated substance. Okay. Now, since we are talking about a region which is anterior to the pons, so this has to be the midbrain. What cranial nerves come from midbrain? 3, 4, 5. That's what you see over here also, the third and the fourth nerve which come out the interpeduncular fossa. Very, very simple, guys. Just another diagram that I have added over here just to show you the location. So if this is the interpeduncular fossa, you can see the optic chiasma and optic tracts, and these two are the cerebral peduncles, which is the crus cerebri. This is the pons, midbrain area. You can see that third nerve coming out here, and this you can see the perforating substance also. The entire area over here, this is the interpeduncular fossa. IPF, how are we going to summarize this? First, IPF, what will you write? Definition, space between the two crus cerebri, and its where is it situated? Its location. Okay. Then you will write about the boundaries. Then you will write about the contents. Boundaries, you will make a simple diagram. You make optic chiasma, pons, and optic tracts, perforating substance, and two cerebral peduncles, third and fourth nerves coming like this, infundibulum, tuber cinerarium, mammillary bodies, and all in the contents. That's it. IPF is done. As simple as it gets. Okay? Yes. Next, we are going to the section of midbrain. Section of midbrain is a very important topic, guys. They may ask superior colliculus, they may ask inferior colliculus also, and you should be thorough with everything. And now I am teaching the section through the superior colliculus. This is the section at the level of superior colliculus. Now I keep repeating this. We have midbrain, pons, and medulla. From the midbrain, I have the 3 and 4th nerve coming out. From here, we have 6, 7, 8. From here, we have 9, 10, and 11 and 12. From the medulla, we have these 4 nerves which come out. 5th nerve, trigeminal nerve, it's a very big, you have trigeminal nucleus in all 3 levels. Okay. This basic understanding of what cranial nerves come from which level you should have. Now, because I'm talking about midbrain, What are the two nerves that you expect? Third and fourth. Okay. Now the third cranial nerve nuclei lies at the level of superior colliculus. Fourth cranial nerve nuclei lies at the level of inferior colliculus, and fifth cranial nerve nuclei should be present at both the levels. Okay. I'm talking about midbrain. That's what we are seeing in this picture now, right? This is a section at the level of superior colliculus. At the superior colliculus, what cranial nerve do you see? Third cranial nerve. So the nucleus of oculomotor nerve and the third nerve is coming out, as you can see, right? And of course, we have the fifth cranial nerve nucleus, which is present, and that is the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Okay, we're already sorted with how many structures? Superior colliculus done, oculomotor nerve nucleus done, oculomotor nerve done, mesencephalic nucleus is done. Then what is left out? There is an important structure called as MLF, which is very important. Just this you have to memorize, because that MLF palsy and everything will be too much. But don't worry about it. Just know that in relation to the in relation to the third nerve, we have a very important fasciculus called as medial longitudinal fasciculus, which is very important. Okay. Then come to this. What is this big pink structure that you see? This is the red nucleus. Red nucleus related to movement and so many other things. So you have the corticopontine rubro pathways, right? You remember any pathway that is rubro will have to pass through red nucleus. Okay, cerebellar pathways, you remember that from the cortex comes to the pons and then goes into the cerebellum. So cortico rubro ponto cerebellar pathway. So all of these pathways have to pass through the red nucleus, and the red nucleus is situated at the level of superior colliculus, which is a very important information. Okay, this is something you have to learn. This is basic. Third and fourth nerve, which is present in the midbrain. Because I'm talking about superior colliculus, third nerve nucleus and the nerve coming out is basics. Extra information is this red nucleus, which is present over here. Then come to the sensory aspects, guys. What do we have? We have dorsal column pathway and we have antero-spinothalamic pathway. Correct? Dorsal column pathway and both, right? Dorsal column is more medial, spinothalamic is more lateral. Dorsal column passes via medial lemniscus. Spinothalamic passes via spinal lemniscus. So obviously, all of these tracts, and of course we have trigeminal lemniscus as well. All of this lemniscus, they have to pass through midbrain, right? So midbrain, pons, medulla, these are all the regions which take all of the sensory information from the face and the body wall to the cerebral cortex. So you will have to have these structures at various levels. So they are present at the level of superior colliculus also, because from the midbrain, they go into the thalamus. So they have to be present, they have to be seen in the midbrain. That is what you see here. You see the sensory, the blue color structures you see over here is the trigeminal lemniscus, spinal and medial lemniscus. These are the sensory aspects. Then come to the last part, which is the frontopontine fibers, which are medial, corticospinal and corticonuclear, which are in the middle, and the temporopontine fibers, which are more lateral. And of course, you have the substantia nigra also present in the midbrain. That's it. When you are approaching a question of the midbrain at superior colliculus and inferior colliculus, see what level. If it is superior colliculus, you know that you're going to see third nerve nucleus and fifth nerve nucleus. So it's definitely present across all levels. These two structures are sorted. Then one extra information I told you was in superior colliculus, we have an important structure called red nucleus. That is also sorted. Then we have, because third nerve nucleus, another extra information is the presence of MLF here. Sorted. Then all the lemniscus should be present here, because from here they are going into the thalamus. So all medial, spinal, trigeminal lemniscus should have to be present over here. That is also sorted. Then corticospinal, guys, from cortex it is going to the spinal cord. So obviously they are passing through the midbrain. They have to pass through the midbrain. So corticospinal and corticobulbar, that is the corticonuclear, they are also present, sorted. Frontopontine and temporopontine, again, everything has to pass through the midbrain, they are also present, sorted. Nothing to memorize, just understand and apply the knowledge that you already have. You guys struggle so much to label the diagram, so much to write, but apply logic. Superior colliculus, so third. If the same section had been asked at the level of inferior colliculus, then you will not see red nucleus, you will not see oculomotor, you would have seen the fourth cranial nerve nucleus, that is a trochlear. Okay, simple. This is how you approach. If a question comes, draw this diagram, just do the labeling, you are good to go. All right, yes. Next, cerebellar peduncles is very simple, guys. Nothing much to learn over here. We have three cerebellar peduncles: superior, middle, and inferior. Superior cerebellar peduncle, all of the afferent tracts go through the superior cerebellar peduncle, which connects it to the midbrain. And the middle cerebral peduncle connects it to the pons, and the inferior connects it with the medulla. And what tracts pass through this is actually a physiology topic. I wouldn't want you to bother too much because there are way too many tracts over here. Just you have to know superior cerebellar peduncle, midbrain, connects the cerebellum with midbrain, middle with pons, inferior with the medulla. If this much is enough for a 3-marker question with a small line diagram should be enough. Okay. Last, this is the last topic which we are doing, which is the lateral medullary syndrome, also called as Wallenberg syndrome. Repeating the same thing again. Midbrain, pons, medulla. Midbrain, third and fourth nerve. Pons, 6, 7, 8 from the pontomedullary junction. Medulla, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you have 9, 10, 11, 12. These are the cranial nerves that are present. Correct? Now, the question over here is the lateral medullary syndrome, meaning something is wrong with the cranial nerves that are coming from the medulla. So what cranial nerves should be involved over here? 9, 10, 11, 12. But as we know, cranial nerve 12, hypoglossal, is very medial, isn't it? Even if you remember the rhomboid fossa, the one that we had drawn earlier, if you remember the floor of the fourth ventricle, you see that the sixth abducent nucleus was very medial and the eighth cranial nerve was very lateral. And then you had the hypoglossal again, which was very medial, right? And the vestibular was lateral. So this is 6 and this is 12. And then you had the vagus, which was also sort of lateral only. So any number that is divisible by 3 is always medial, guys. Any cranial nerve that is divisible by 3, like 3, 6, 12. So all of these are medial. Whereas the rest, something like 7, 8, here in this, if you have to mention 11, so all of these will be lateral. Question here is lateral medullary syndrome. From the midbrain, you have 9, 10, 11, 12 coming. So obviously 12 is medial. 12 is medial. It will not be affected. So what will be affected? What will be affected? It will be 9, 10 and 11. Okay. 9, 10 and 11 will be affected. Next. If cranial nerve 9, 10, 11 are affected together, it is called as the bulbar palsy. What is bulbar palsy? 9, 10, 11, if it is gone, then we call it bulbar palsy. Along with that, you also have the nucleus 5, because I keep telling you guys, the fifth cranial nerve nucleus is present across all 3 levels. So obviously fifth cranial nerve nucleus will also be gone, and the number is 5, not divisible by 3. So it has to be present laterally. So fifth cranial nerve nucleus is also gone. Then what else is gone? Spinothalamic tract. Spinothalamic tract is also gone. Then spinal tract of fifth nucleus is also gone. Then you also have the vestibular nucleus that is involved over here, and that is also gone. But what is not gone? What is not gone over here is the dorsal column pathway, because dorsal column will be more medial. 12th nucleus, which will not be gone because it is again more medial. Depending upon this, now you can see the spinothalamic tract is gone. Spinothalamic tract is gone, meaning all of the lateral pathways, right? The anterospinal thalamic tract, what are the pain and the temperature and all of these sensations are gone. pain, temperature, and all of these sensations are gone because spinothalamic is gone. Along with that, 9, 10, 11 nerves are also gone. So you have bulbar palsy. Correct? Bulbar palsy will be complete. If ninth nerve is the glossopharyngeal. So the uvula, the sensory supply is from the ninth cranial nerve and the motor is 10th. So both are gone. So uvula will be deviated. Then glossopharyngeal nerve also supplies all the muscles of the tongue. So tongue muscles are also gone. Then vagus supplies pharynx, larynx, uvula, and palate muscles. That is also gone. 11th cranial nerve, accessory nerve. What does it supply? Shrugging action. What is this? Trapezius. So this muscle is also, the 11th cranial nerve is also gone, and together all of these manifestations are called as bulbar palsy. So here in bulbar palsy, what happens is gag reflex is also lost, cough reflex is also lost, and everything related to 9, 10, and 11 is lost. So that is called as bulbar palsy. Okay. So in bulbar palsy, all of these structures are gone. Okay. So this syndrome is called as Wallenberg syndrome, and the artery that is affected over here is the pica. Remember, again, two vertebral arteries join together to form the basilar artery, which continues as the superior cerebral arteries. Okay, superior cerebral artery, and then they join via the posterior communicating of the internal carotid, which gives anterior cerebral, and joined together by the anterior communicating, and this is the circle of Willis, right? Now, pica comes from the vertebral artery. So vertebral artery, if is affected, of course, pica will also be affected, causes the lateral medullary syndrome. Okay, that's what causes the lateral medullary syndrome. So what are the different topics that we discussed today, guys? And just to summarize, in lateral medullary syndrome, what are the different things that you will be writing? First, you will draw the diagram. Okay, then you will write what are the nerves involved. Then you will write the sensory. Then you will write the manifestations. Manifestations is very simple. Spinothalamic tract is gone. Pain and temperature is lost. Bulbar palsy, cough reflex, gag reflex, uvula, tongue is deviated to the opposite side. So all of this together will constitute the bulbar palsy. That's about it. That's all you have to write about lateral medullary syndrome. And of course, mention the artery also. It is a pica that is involved. All right. So we discussed today the IPF, then the basal ganglia topic, which is very, very important. Then we also did the medulla, midbrain and medulla, and related structures. Then we read the floor of the fourth ventricle also, and the lateral medullary syndrome. Everything, all the topics that I taught today are very, very important. All right. So that's it, guys. That's it from my side today. And I hope you've enjoyed today's class, and I wish you guys all the very best. Keep studying. I'm sure you will come out with flying colors. All right. I'll see you next week. Until then, study well. Bye-bye. Thank you.